How do you react when someone is disrespectful towards you? I have found in leadership that it's easy to get caught in this cycle of disrespect because oftentimes our natural inclination is to respond aggressively or maybe even get too defensive. Today on the show, I'm going to discuss how to address a team member that is tempered without losing your leadership impact.
This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
All right, let's talk about this when tempers flare. You know, this was one that hits home for me personally, and I will tell you, not even 2 hours after a recent event, I'm in my phone writing notes. Man, I got to talk about this on the show. Look, if you're in leadership, you know it can get tense. It can get stressful. Personalities are involved, deadlines, stresses, pressure. Sometimes this creates a tense environment where tempers can flare. Maybe you've been listening to this show for a while, and I've left you with this impression that I'm this perfect leader that fell from leadership heaven. Well, today I'm here to report that I am far from perfect, and I'm going to debunk any myth of Jeff Hancher's the perfect leader. Because I recently found myself in a situation with a team member that was feeling, let's just say, a level of tension that bubbled into a less than ideal encounter between them and I. And man, if I could take this one back, have you ever had one of those moments as a leader? Now, look, I'm not here to tell you that I failed completely and it was a horrific ending. It ended in termination. I threw a chair, like it didn't go to that level. And I will add that I feel like the situation ended in a healthy way. However, I've now had a great opportunity to reflect on this situation and think about what could I have done better to navigate this high tension situation. You know, we can learn a lot from hindsight, can't we, as leaders? And I highly recommend that you do this practice of self-reflection, because I sure did in this moment. And I want to talk to you about some principles when these tempers flare. Things that I know, but I still don't always get right. But I at least wanted to challenge myself through this episode, but also challenge you and prepare you on how do you respond when the tempers flare. The first thing is, as hard as it's going to be, you got to stay calm and you got to be as neutral as possible. It's important to approach these environments with a very open mind and not take things too personal. In this recent scenario with me, I started off pretty good. You know, as I'm reflecting, I'm like, I started off pretty good until, wait for it, this team member took it to a level that I started to feel a little disrespected. I started to feel this tightness in the chest. Have you been there? When that line was crossed, I found myself becoming tense, direct, and I would even say defensive in my response and in my tone. And that's when I knew, man, this thing is unraveling quick. If you ever come across a judgmental or you come across defensive in any way as a leader, it's going to escalate the situation. And that was the path that I was heading down, was defensive, tense. You could almost see it. You definitely could feel it. I could feel it. The good news for me is that now I'm able to look back and recognize when I come across these situations, because I've been through them so many times now. You know, I'm 2 decades plus in leadership. This isn't the first time that a temper has flared in front of me. I know how my body responds, so I can feel it. I can feel the tightness. I can feel my throat tightening up. It changes how I even communicate. I know how my body responds to feeling attacked. And in this case, when I caught myself going down the road of, elevating my tone, defending my position, I could feel it. So I knew this was the time that I got to get calm. I got to call a timeout. And that's when I was able to realize it and recover as fast as possible. As a matter of fact, halfway through this encounter, I said to this other person, the best thing for you to do right now is walk away from me. You got to walk away. You go and let's regroup. I literally did this because I felt like it was so tense at the moment, nothing good was going to happen in the short term. Most of the time, we can hear and listen to what our body is saying. Your physical body will send you alerts. Listen to these alerts. This is your moment to fight for calm, pause, and gather yourself. Now that you're gathered, now that you got a little bit more composure, now is the time to re-engage, which is what I did with this other person. It wasn't hours later, it was literally minutes later. I'm talking 10, 15 minutes because it was still fresh. Point number 2, ask open-ended questions. Ask questions that encourage this other person to share their perspective. This shows that you're interested in understanding the root cause of their behavior, not just reprimanding them. And by the way, I had plenty of data that I could have went straight into reprimand. I could have went straight into don't ever do this again, written discipline. I could have went right down that road. But that's not going to help us in the long haul. When you have curiosity, it allows for this neutral, non-confrontational posture as a leader, which is what we're trying to accomplish. You could say something like, hey, look, it seems like you're really upset. Is everything okay? Or help me understand your frustration. This is a leader being curious, and curious by asking open-ended questions. When you ask open-ended questions, certainly you run the risk of, the person getting even more angry. What do you care how I feel? You do run that risk. But you also are opening the door for collaboration. The third piece is to seek to understand them, not to blame them. When you start blaming, even if they're dead wrong and you catch them with a smoking gun, and they're just dead to rights. Always remember, the goal of a leader is not to be right, but to create an environment that's right. Disrespectful behavior might stem from frustrations that they're having. It might be misunderstandings. They might be going through personal issues that you know nothing about. When we express a genuine desire to understand the underlying factors, it changes everything. You might say to the person, hey, look, I want to work towards a solution. Can you tell me why you're so upset? I'm opening by saying, look, I want us to bridge this gap. I want to find common ground. I want to see the mission go forward. Just tell me why you're upset. Once I, in this environment, regained my composure, and I began to do this, and I uncovered some of the root cause of this team member's frustration, and look, there was a combination of things that was causing the frustration. There was communication breakdowns. I thought they knew something, and another leader, I thought they told them the information didn't make it down to this tempered employee the right way. So we had communication breakdowns. I also found out that this specific team member was probably overworked due to a pressing deadline. They worked late into the night. They got up early the next day. There was an event happening, so they had to stay late. They got up early. They're working on a little sleep. And they're telling me this when I went into asking the open-ended questions. It wasn't until I began to seek to understand that I began to uncover these root causes. And by all means, you might be listening and saying, I don't care if anybody ever talks to me that way. Well, suit yourself. I'm not here to win the battle. I'm here to win the war. And by all means, that type of behavior, it doesn't justify anything. Wrong is wrong, but it does allow you to begin to work through the challenge. And it earns you the right to begin to address the challenge and address the behavior. When our conversation made it to this point, and this team member began explaining why they were frustrated, it seemed that they also became less defensive. Why? Because they're starting to get some of this off their chest. At one point, they even apologized. I didn't ask for an apology, but they gave one. Not just once, multiple times after the open-ended questions and listening, active listening. They apologized, and we were finally now in this place that we could work on restoration. And isn't that the goal? The goal isn't just to nail somebody to the wall every time they do something wrong. I'm not saying their behavior is acceptable, but it does work towards collaboration, problem solving, and getting back to the work, getting back to the project, getting back to the mission. Number 4, encourage problem solving. Once the issues are surfaced, involve the other person in finding solutions. When we have these curiosity-driven conversations, they can lead to collaborative problem solving. Now it's not us versus them, it's we. You might say something like, what do you think could help improve the situation? Now what we're doing is we're learning from this hiccup, this pothole in the road. Now we're all in agreement that what just happened was not ideal. So you might say something like that. What do you think we could do to improve the situation? Once this team member and I reached this level, they began to become very engaged in recovery and looking for alternatives, saying things like, well, Jeff, maybe we could do this, or what are your thoughts on that? I mean, this was in a matter of a 30-minute span of high temper to collaboration. What was just a few minutes ago a brick wall that I could feel my throat tightening and this like quivering in my voice of closed doors and frustration was now an open door and possibilities that didn't exist just 10 minutes ago. This allowed us to forge a common ground and begin to problem solve together. But ultimately, don't miss number 5. This is a big one. Reinforce standards without being combative. Remember, we're not here to be right. We're here to move forward with what's right. But if you've been in my performance management workshop, you know I'm big on accountability. We still have to reinforce it. I understand they apologized. We're not here to pull them through the mud. And by the way, I literally said these words, I forgive you. I forgive you. Now, all right, you did it. I'm over it. We're moving on. But it doesn't excuse the behavior. While being curious, reinforce the importance of respect and professionalism on your team. You might say something like, hey, I want to make sure we're both on the same page about how we communicate. Respect is key on our team and in our culture here. And I'd like to work together to make sure that we uphold that. Is that fair? And that literally was the conversation. It's fair. Jeff, I'm sorry. And I said, listen, this can't happen again. And they agreed. What did I do? I set the table for, look, this can't happen, why it can't happen, but I also set the table in the event that it were to happen again. This team member knows there's future accountability coming. In my situation, I was able to connect with this team member in a restorative way. And by the way, let me tell you this. This team member, A+, high tenure, peak performer, amazing person. This wasn't something that was in their normal character, but I still have to set the stage of core values and why they're important. I assured them that I was not perfect either. And in fact, I could have been part of his frustration. I also assured them that the likelihood of a similar situation occurring again in the future was probably pretty likely. Why? We work with these people all the time. We are in high stress, high tense environments. It's likely that this opportunity is going to come again. And I told this person, you're going to have an opportunity to pass this test again. It's coming. And when it does, just remember this conversation. I reminded them that we can't always control what comes our way, but we can always determine how are we going to respond. And that was the challenge. Look, I don't welcome these scenarios. I don't. But in this specific case, I felt like this team member and I walked away stronger than maybe we were before. It almost felt like a forging of fire just took place. By using curiosity, we can shift the focus from blame to understanding. And when we do this as leaders, we can transform a difficult situation into an opportunity for growth and improvement. The most direct way to stop the cycle of flared tempers is to refuse to copy the other person's behavior. We need to resist this impulse to retaliate by doing what I did. Take time to calm down. Listen to your physical cues. Model a composed behavior. Make sure you maintain clear boundaries and explain yourself with clarity. This isn't personal. Most times, rarely is it ever personal. While there's no way to guarantee that they're going to become composed, at the very least, if you follow these steps, you can walk away from that encounter feeling very good about how you, the leader, responded. The next time you're faced with a tense team member, remember these steps. Until next week, keep diffusing the tension and always look to turn the pressure into potential.
The Champion Forum Podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.